Hi, my name's Kara-Leah Grant. I'm the editor and publisher of theyogalunchbox.co.nz and also the author of 40 Days of Yoga, Breaking Down the Barriers to Home Yoga Practice. And that's what I'm here to speak to you about today. So more tips and tricks on how you can make home yoga practice a part of your regular life. So that means a daily practice. Today we're going to look at a technique that I like to call the anchor. So anchoring your practice. So what is an anchor? An anchor is an aspect of practice that you decide that you're going to do, and you'll do it every single day of your 40-day practice. Okay, so an anchor is always the same no matter what, and this can be really useful because when we're doing a 40-day practice, one of the things that I look at is that it's difficult in our lives to sometimes commit to the same time of day. It's difficult sometimes to even commit to the same length of time. So I suggest that you work your practice in wherever you can, however you can. And that can mean that we practice at different times, for different lengths of times, and sometimes in different places. So there can be a lot of movement and a lot of inconsistency. Choosing to work with an anchor gives you one thing that is always the same no matter what, and that has valuable benefits. Okay, that consistency helps to give you something to anchor yourself. Okay, so there is that real sense of everything else can be changing, this remains the same. So an example of an anchor might simply be starting your practice with 5 sun salutations. Okay, that's a great example of anchoring. You might decide that you always end your practice in bridge pose, twist, and shavasana. So that's another great anchor. That particular one will anchor the end of your practice. You might decide that no matter what, you're always going to do alternate nostril breathing, maybe 9 rounds. You may decide that you are always going to do 10 minutes of meditation. So that is an example of an aspect of practice which anchors your whole practice. Now the key thing is that the anchor is not your whole practice, okay? There may be some days when all you do is the anchor. That's all you've got time for, it's all you can fit in. It's like, okay, I'm just going to do my 5 sun salutations. But there will be more often days when you're able to do a whole lot more, okay? But by just having that anchor, it's like, yeah, I get that done, and then what unfolds as a result of that, okay? So how do you choose an anchor? This is the big thing. Choosing an anchor, like, it's important, but don't get too hung up on it at the same time, okay? There's no really wrong answer here, okay? And you can always change it. If you decide to do an anchor and it's really not working for you for some reason or other, you know what? Just let it go, finish your 40-day practice doing whatever it is you need to do, and then on your next 40-day practice, choose a different anchor, okay? So don't get too hung up on there being this perfect right anchor that's going to make everything amazing, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing, when you choose an anchor, the first thing I would look at, second thing that I would look at would be, what are you avoiding in your practice? Okay, what is it that scares you a little bit? What do you not like to go into? What are the things that you do in class, but when you come home and do your home practice, you never do? I would start right there. I would make a list of those things that you're avoiding and look at them and go, why am I avoiding that? And you will know some of those practices or aspects of practice you may be avoiding because they're just not right for you. Okay, perhaps you've got an injury or an illness, or for whatever reason they're not right. So leave those ones aside, but you will know the ones that you're avoiding because you don't like them, they make you feel uncomfortable, they make you feel weak, they make you want to cry, maybe they make you feel nauseous. Those are the ones that you want to look at and go, should I make one of those my anchor? Okay. Number 2, another aspect to consider when you're trying to decide on an anchor, what do you need for balance? Okay, so ultimately yoga is something that harmonizes us and brings us into balance. So when we get on our mat, we want to be doing a practice that balances us out. Okay, so an example for me is I have had chronic back pain in my past, and at times my back needs a little bit more support. So for balance, I may need to do things that support my spine. Okay, so that's an example of choosing an anchor that supports your spine. So I might decide, right, every single time I practice, I'm going to do cat's breath, and I'm going to do a half downward dog, and I'm going to do child's pose, and I'll do them in a specific order, and I will do maybe 2 or 3 rounds of that specific order, that little sequence, and that's my anchor, because I know that those 3 postures put together do wonders for my spine. Okay, so we're looking at what do we avoid, what do we need for balance. And between those two things, you will find something that maybe even meets both of them. Something you're avoiding that you need for balance, okay? That would be your optimum anchor. The third thing to think about though, when you're choosing an anchor, think small, okay? It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be long. I'm not saying your anchor is going to be this 60-minute amazing sequence of, standing asana. No. Your anchor ideally will be something that will only take between sort of 7 to 11 minutes to do. Because if you're going to be doing it every single day, you want it to be a manageable chunk. So on those super busy days when life just gets away on you, at the end of the day at 10:30 at night, you can still think, oh my God, I have to do my anchor, I have to do my practice. Your anchor's only 7 minutes long. You can do it, you're done, and you can go to bed at 10:38, okay? So think small. Doesn't have to be big, 7 to 11 minutes long. So that's how you would choose an anchor. Okay, look at what you're avoiding, look at what you need for balance, and think small. So a little bit more though about the anchor. Think of it like this. When I talk in my book 40 Days of Yoga about yoga itself, I really try to sort of break open your ideas of what yoga is so that you're not perceiving it as 90 minutes of physical postures on a mat at 6:30 a.m. Okay, because having that idea that that's what a home yoga practice is can actually stop us from having a practice. So I want to break it open and make it far more spontaneous, far more fluid, and be all about what it is that you need in the moment, what feels good. The danger of that though is that with all of that sort of spontaneity and fluidity, etc., you can just bounce around and do this on this day, and you'll do that on that day, and then you might do that over there the next day, and your practice can kind of be all over the show, all right? So having an anchor gives you a container with which to hold your practice. Think about water, okay? If you've got no container for water, there's no container at all and you just pour it out, okay? It is just going to go everywhere, all over the floor. It'll spread out as thin as it possibly can and it will evaporate very quickly. If, however, you put water into a container, be it a sink or a cup or a bowl, that container will hold the water, and then the water is of some use because it's contained and you can use it for something. You can wash your dishes in it, you can drink it, you can make soup out of it. Okay, you can't do that if that water is dispersed all over the ground. So in that way, the anchor provides a container for our practice. Okay, and literally a container for us. That other benefit of consistency is that you can't avoid it. Okay, so that means that on those days when you really do not want to do your 5 sun salutations because you can't be bothered, there's no there's no arguing with the mind. There's no reasoning. There's no, I'll just do something else instead. You've made the commitment. That's your anchor. You're doing it for 40 days. Okay, so it gives you consistency, and by having that consistent anchor all the way through, you can start to observe how you fluctuate in relationship to the anchor. So the anchor is always the same, but your experience of the anchor is different because you are different. Okay, so it starts to give us something to notice. It's like, oh wow, sun salutations really looked different yesterday. They felt different. Now today they feel like this, and then today they feel like that. Sun salutations don't change. They are the same every single time. What's changing is you, your body, your mind, your experience, your relationship to the sun salutation. Okay. The interesting thing about anchors is that in anchoring our practice in something that we need or we're avoiding, surprising things can happen. Okay, even to me, like I've been using 40-day practices now for maybe 4, 5, 6 years, okay, as a way of maintaining a consistent daily practice. And I don't always have an anchor. Sometimes I'll just be practicing. But then I'll choose an anchor, and it will be because I'm looking for a specific result, or I know there's something I'm avoiding or something that I need. And right now, my anchor practice is 5 sun salutations. This came about because I noticed that I was avoiding them. I'm like, ooh, interesting. All right, let's make it an anchor. So I've done that, and the really surprising thing to come out of it is, as a result, I've started getting up early in the morning. And this is, I mean, I used to get up early in the morning all the time, and then I had a baby and I was up all night, and mornings became time to sleep if I could, and then I was up dealing with him. He's 3 years old now. He sort of wakes up around 7 o'clock, and so I've been sleeping in until 7 o'clock as well. Once I started doing my 5 sun salutations, I really wanted to have uninterrupted time to do my practice, because all kinds of juiciness was starting to unfold on the mat after those 5 sun salutations. So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to get up at 6:30. And then I realized half an hour is not quite long enough. I'm going to start getting up at 6:15. This morning I got up at 6:05. So an unexpected benefit of anchoring my practice with 5 sun salutations, all of a sudden I have an early morning practice for the first time in my life. So you never know what's going to happen as a result of anchoring your practice. And while it doesn't matter and you're not, there's no attachment to what might happen, it's something to bear in mind that by stepping into the unknown, by going where you avoid, you're opening yourself up for change. And that can be a magical process. So that's it, anchoring. Anchor your practice by choosing an aspect of practice that you will do every single day for your 40 days. Choose something that perhaps you're avoiding or something perhaps that you need. Think small, keep it to maybe 7 or 11 minutes to do that particular anchor, and then just notice how that consistency of anchor kind of anchors, it's that word, right? It anchors everything amidst fluctuating change. So the time you practice might change, how long you practice might change, you will change, the anchor is always the same. So I'll be really curious to know what it is you choose to anchor your practice with, and how does it impact your practice. So, enjoy.